Lucius Cornelius Sulla is the kind of figure history usually tries to forget, then realizes it cannot. His name sits there in the background of the late Republic, colder than the others, less theatrical than Caesar, less romantic than Pompey, yet far more disturbing once you actually look at what he did to Rome's imagination. When Sulla marched on his own city, when he filled the forum with hanging lists and turned executions into public administration, he crossed a line Rome had long believed could not be crossed. The Republic survived on the quiet faith that its laws and traditions would always be stronger than the will of any one man. Sulla showed that this was a story Romans told themselves, nothing more. Later, Julius Caesar would become the symbol of the Republic's death, the name everyone knows, the man who turned dictatorship into a permanent shape. But Caesar did not step into a clean world. He walked through a doorway Sulla had already broken, into a Rome that had seen, once, what it looked like when a single man bent the state to match his own mind and walked away alive. To understand Caesar's confidence, you first have to understand Sulla's shadow. Sulla liked to pretend the name came to him, as if fate itself had whispered it while he slept, but everyone in Rome knew he chose it on his own. Felix, the Fortunate. A man calling himself that in a city obsessed with omens was more than confident. It was a declaration, almost a warning, that he believed the universe had taken his side. People cringed at his arrogance, yet some part of them wondered what he seemed to know that they didn't. From the beginning, he behaved like someone accompanied by invisible instructions. Victories became confirmations, setbacks became tests. Even his enemies noticed the strange calm he carried, the way he moved through crisis as if already briefed on the ending. When he crushed Mithridates in the East, he didn't describe the triumph as strategy or discipline. He talked about the gods guiding his hand. He said it plainly, almost casually, and the simplicity of the claim made it more unsettling. There is something dangerous about a leader who believes his success is pre-written. Failure becomes impossible. Cruelty becomes permitted. Every decision takes on the weight of destiny, even when it is little more than revenge dressed in ritual clothing. Sulla did not need to shout or persuade. He needed only to act, and then point to the outcome as though it had been foretold. People around him felt the shift. They didn't talk about policy. They didn't talk about right or wrong. They talked about signs, about dreams, about the strange luck that followed him like a second shadow. Some admired it. Others feared it. A few tried to oppose him, and when they fell, Rome murmured that perhaps he really had been chosen. That whisper gave him more authority than any law. Because once a man is believed to be favored by forces beyond human reach, resisting him stops feeling political and starts feeling suicidal. People talk about Sulla's proscriptions the way they talk about a plague, as if the killings drifted through Rome on their own, without a human hand guiding them. But nothing about that period was chaotic. It was organized cruelty, engineered with the precision of someone who had stopped seeing Romans as citizens and started seeing them as pieces on a board. The lists appeared without warning. One morning, a man would step into the forum and see his friend's name nailed up like an announcement for a festival. No reasons, no charges, just a name, a price, and an understanding that the city had entered a new kind of darkness. You could feel it in the way people averted their eyes, the way conversations dissolved mid-sentence whenever someone approached. What disturbed Rome wasn't only the deaths, it was the system behind them. Rewards for informants, immunity for killers, wealth funneling neatly into the hands of Sulla's allies as confiscated estates were auctioned at impossible discounts. It felt less like punishment and more like harvest. Lives turned into currency. Sulla never lingered on the moral cost. He behaved like someone performing a necessary surgery, even when the incisions reached deep into old grudges and private hatreds. He made no attempt to disguise it. When a man asked why his name was on the list, the answer came back with a kind of chilling plainness. Because Sulla wants it so. No justification, no attempt at righteousness, pure assertion. There was no frenzy in him. That's what Romans whispered about at night. Most killers burn hot. Sulla burned cold. His violence didn't feel like emotion. It felt like policy, like he had located the part of the Republic he considered diseased and decided the only cure was amputation. And Rome learned something unsettling in those months. Fear obeys faster than law, and once fear takes root, it doesn't argue with power. It only survives it. Sulla never feared chaos in battle. He understood dust, confusion, shouting, the sudden pivot of a cavalry wing. That kind of chaos had rules. But political chaos, the kind that seeps in through voices, rivalries, shifting alliances, terrified him in ways he never admitted. You can feel it if you trace his career backward through the years before he seized power. Riots in the Forum, assemblies boiling over, generals suddenly realizing their legions could march inward instead of outward. All of that lodged somewhere deep in him and never really left. When he finally stood above Rome, he looked at the Republic the way a surgeon looks at a body patched too many times. Everything wobbling, laws bent until they barely resembled themselves, tradition stretched past breaking point and still presented as medicine, deals layered over older deals until no one could remember what the original principle had been. To most senators, this was simply the way things worked. To Sulla, it was intolerable. So he began to tighten. Not with manifestos or lofty speeches, but with a kind of instinctive engineering. Magistracies locked into strict sequences. Popular power reduced until it could barely draw breath. Courts rearranged so outcomes would run along tracks he understood. Provincial commands hemmed in with rules that made initiative feel dangerous. Nothing flamboyant in the design, just an obsessive need to make moving parts predictable. People felt the change before they understood it. Rome had always been loud, shouting, argument, raw ambition pouring through the streets. Under Sulla, the volume dropped. It wasn't peace, it was caution. Citizens no longer knew where disagreement ended and danger began, and that uncertainty worked better than any law he could have written. He wasn't restoring an old order, whatever he claimed. He was building a Rome he could trust, a Rome that would never again surprise the man at the top. For Sulla, order was not philosophy. It was self-defense.
Rome had seen strong men before. Ambitious generals who clung to office until someone killed them. Tribunes who mistook temporary applause for immortality. Power in the Republic behaved like a drug that no one put down once they tasted it. That is why Sulla's resignation still feels unreal. It cuts against everything expected from a dictator, yet in his case, it fits his inner pattern more closely than anything he did with a sword. He had already broken Rome to remake it around his idea of order. The enemies were dead or exiled, the laws recut. The Constitution hardened until it moved with the stiffness of an old scar. From a distance, it looks like the perfect moment to hold on, to dig in, to turn temporary dictatorship into permanent rule. Instead, Sulla stepped aside and watched the machine run without him. Ancient writers describe people staring as he walked through the Forum without bodyguards, as if the sight itself were some kind of blasphemy. You do not leave absolute power. It leaves you. Yet he moved through the crowd with contempt, the air of a man testing whether his reputation did the work his office once did. No one touched him. To understand that walk, you have to see how Sulla thought about his own life. He was not chasing an endless reign, he was chasing completion, a finished design. Once he believed he had imposed that design on Rome, staying longer would have felt redundant. The story was done, the role played. What remained was ego, and he had gratified that long ago. So he retired to his villa and left behind something unsettling, not a living dictator. He left a memory. Proof that one man could take the Republic apart, reassemble it in his own image, and then lay power down without being punished for picking it up. Sulla lingers in Roman memory like a bad dream that never quite resolves. Other men left monuments, slogans, marble. He left a demonstration. He showed Rome that its sacred forms could be hollowed out and worn like a mask, that institutions were only as strong as the will of the man standing behind them. Once someone had proved that, the spell was gone. His reign of terror passed. The lists came down. The executions stopped. His constitutional repairs were slowly undone or twisted into new shapes.
On the surface, it might look as if Rome recovered from him. But underneath, something had shifted. The old belief that no single man could seize the Republic and bend it until it screamed never fully returned. Every ambitious Roman who came after him had seen the blueprint. A general with loyal soldiers, a city taught to fear more than to argue, a state that could be remade in the image of one mind, then handed on to others who understood the trick. Sulla died in retirement, far from the Forum, but the world he had proven possible did not die with him. It waited, patient, inside the imagination of men who had watched and learned how far terror and certainty could go when they walked together. If this exploration has deepened your understanding of leadership, genius, and their inherent tensions, I'd appreciate you subscribing for more examinations of history's most consequential minds. Thank you for watching.